Hey, remember when you had that green, black and dark red Tyrannosaurus Rex toy in your back garden in the summer of 1993? No, me neither. That's because this is a knockoff Kenner Tyrannosaurus Rex and is the focus of today's review. So here she is in all her Jurassic Park knockoff glory. I was unsure whether to invest in this a couple of years ago when it surfaced on eBay, but the more and more I looked at the pictures, I realized that this was the real deal. This was a genuine knockoff of the Jurassic Park Kenner Rex. And the more I looked at this thing, the more I realized that corners had been cut dramatically in order to make this a very cheap knockoff toy. For example, the rubbery skin that we're all used to. Yeah, it's there, but it's a much more harder rubber. It seems that they've got the durometer of the rubber wrong in the process, making this skin not only feel less lifelike, but make it feel more like a solid plastic toy. Strangely, the battery box compartment has been removed, although you can make out the faint indication of where the seam would have been, and they've actually used that as the injection molding point. Then they seem to have fashioned in some sort of battery box style hole, but not actually used it to make any electronics. And then they've actually rubbed off the UCS Amblin information, which would actually show that this is a licensed toy. So my best guess is that they were actually thinking of adding electronics to this knockoff, but in a way that was more simplified and would allow for a standard AA battery box to just fit inside here, which is a more readily available type of battery. As in the original toy, we have a transition from this rubbery material to a hard plastic leg component. But unlike the original toy, we now have articulation in the legs. That's right, this Tyrannosaurus Rex can do some fancy pants moves. And these legs do a full 360. So you can get some wonderful posing with this figure. Unfortunately, the seam line at the hips does not allow for extra twisting, but we do have the standard articulation of the front limbs. We have some wonderful molding detail on the toe claws. They kind of look like they've been melted off over time. And unlike the original toy, they've cut corners by not casting the upper and lower teeth as separate plastic pieces that they could paint. No, they've just cast this all as one conjoined piece, including the flesh in the corner of the mouth. The paint job on the mouth area is a little bit rough, let's put it that way. And that's before we get onto the magnificent paint scheme of black, bright green, and this dark brown. It's obvious that the dark brown was partly inspired by the coloration of the original Tyrannosaurus Rex, but the green and the black make me think more of the unreleased Gulper T.Rex figure than the original Red Rex. Perhaps applied with a rudimentary rattle can to apply these lovely green and black stripe effects, while the belly receives a beautiful splash of spray paint green. We have hand painted eyes, which are obviously inspired by the original. However, on this side it appears there's been a paint mishap that they're just happy to overlook. The teeth and gum area have a nice primitive splash of white, and surprisingly they have painted the tongue a bright red, as well as painting the finger claws a glossy black, and those blobby toe claws are also painted glossy black. Bringing in the original Kenner Red Rex, you can see instantly that there is a size difference overall. And I can only assume this is either because of the rubber material shrinking over time or the actual molding and casting process. Although the gulf between the quality control is vast, I will say they did a pretty good job in replicating the sculptural likeness of the original toy. But taking a look at the feet and the toe claws, you can get a good idea as to how well they did in replicating some of the finer details. And rather than resolving the intersection of the mouth where the tongue actually goes further back, they seem to have just globbed the inner mouth together there to prevent too much work being done on those detailed areas. And just looking at the comparative paint jobs on the heads, you can see there's no comparison. Look at the detail on that eye area, for example. And what Jurassic Park Red Rex wouldn't be recognizable without the trademark bent tail caused by a box that was slightly too small. In a stunning move, the knockoff toy has actually improved that by straightening out that tail and giving it a little bit of an elegant flick. Comparing the undersides of these two Rexes, you can see here clearly where the battery box was originally on the Kenner toy and where it's just been molded into the body on the new one, and they've actually got the injection molding hole there. And there's some nice sculptural detail lost on the Kenner toy where the new battery box was intended to go on the Knockoff. And here on the underside of the tail you can just see a rectangular area with the licensing information, which has been carefully removed on this Knockoff toy. And on the bottom of the feet you can see more information about the chemical properties of the plastic used, which is wonderfully non-apparent on the Knockoff toy. Also, areas like the holes that have actually been put in to allow amplification of the sound effects are no longer visible on the Knockoff. With all of those differences to the Kenner toy and the drawbacks aside, I still love this Knockoff figure. I think it's a wonderful testament to the kind of knockoff quality of toys in the 1990s, and I love the fact that someone somewhere attempted to knock off this huge toy. Despite all of the things that it had built in to make it a really appealing toy, they actually managed to make a full-size knockoff of the 1993 Red Rex. And actually, probably as a kid, I would have loved to have found this in a store and gotten it anyway. If you're a fan of the vintage Star Wars figure line, you may be aware that knockoff figures are actually highly sought after. So I have no idea about the actual value of this figure. All I know is I've never seen another one out in the wild, and I really love this figure. It's a quirky piece of Jurassic Park history, and it's a great one to add to my Kenner figure line. So let me know, have you seen any other Jurassic Park knockoff figures? I'd love to hear your comments. If you've seen this one, I'd love to hear from you, if you know anything about the history of it. And in the meantime guys, rate, comment and subscribe, hit that bell for notifications, and I'll see you in the next video.